Hello and welcome to Resilient Business, where we talk to small business owners navigating changing times. In this episode, I'm very happy to have iCRYO franchise owner and operator Matt Pepe. Building on his experience in healthcare, tech, sports medicine, business operations, and franchising over the years, Matt opened 2 iCRYO locations in 2020 in the Triangle region of North Carolina, with aspirations of building his team and opening more centers throughout the state. If you want to learn about operating a fast-paced franchise or standalone wellness business, or if you'd like to find out about iCRYO and its select wellness and medical services to help you lead a healthier life, this episode is for you. Matt and I talk about the ins and outs of getting a franchise up and running, from selecting the right opportunity to learning curve, staffing, and knowing when it's right to trust the process, even if it means giving up a bit of control. We also talk about the iCRYO brand and experience for those looking to increase their health span and lead a truly vital, vibrant, and enjoyable life. As always, if you get value from Resilient Business, please like, comment, and subscribe. And please share this episode with anyone who could benefit from this discussion. Also, please check the show notes for all my specials from my affiliates and to stay in touch with my content on all platforms and my event calendar. I'd love to see you out there on the road. So, here's Matt Pepe. I hope you enjoy. Matt Pepe, welcome to Resilient Business. So glad to have you on today. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me, Joe. Excited to be here.
Yeah, we've been wanting to put this together for quite some time, so I'm glad we could finally get on. And, you know, what I was thinking for today was that conversation I think I want to have with you is going to potentially reach a couple of different audiences. And so we're going to be talking, you know, really first and foremost to your local community and the community that you want to address and tell about your business, basically. And then we're also going to be addressing, I think, the community of wellness professionals, either those that are perhaps opening up a franchise like an iCRYO, maybe an iCRYO in particular, or maybe general population wellness professionals that are maybe even starting their own facility of sorts in the wellness realm. So hopefully this conversation will have value for a couple of different audiences. And that's why I was so excited to talk to you and bring you on. So, but before we jump into all of those details, maybe just give a little bit of a history and a background of your journey and sort of how you ended up where you are today, if you would.
Yeah, absolutely. I think like most people, it was a journey. It was, I didn't start out on a path where I said, hey, I want to own this type of wellness business. I was in health sciences my whole life. I studied health sciences as an undergrad in school. I went on to get a master's degree in sports medicine, and I used that to become an athletic trainer. So that's kind of how I initially got introduced to a lot of the modalities I'm sure we're going to talk about later on today. So from an educational standpoint, very much in the clinical setting, working directly with athletes, learning lots about the human body, how it works and all these modalities. But what was interesting to me was I really didn't love the work. Didn't like being an athletic trainer. It wasn't really what I thought it would be at the end of the day. And that's nothing, if there's any athletic trainers here listening, you know, you do have to have a passion for it. I know a lot of y'all do. And, you know, I thought I did. But I wanted to get more into business in the long run. And a lot of that, I think, came from my family. I had a very entrepreneurial family. My father ran his own businesses. So I saw that side of it too. What I ultimately was looking for is a way to kind of match both together. I ended up working at a startup in the health technology space. And I know, Joe, that has a lot of your background as well. We built software for pharmaceutical companies. And I did that for about 8 years, kind of worked my way up from not knowing anything about technology to working directly with development teams, working directly with big pharma, a lot of brands. We did a lot on medication adherence. So I learned a lot about that world and also learned a lot about tech in the meantime, but also about managing people. And I kind of got to a point where the company I was with was we weren't really reinvesting in the technology. They were becoming more of a media company, and I just wasn't interested in media. And that's where I started to look at, hey, what options do I have to go run my own business? And what options do I have to build a brick and mortar like I saw my father do? My brother was now working also for the same company that my father was with. And they were actually very much involved with Planet Fitness, some of the early franchisees in the Planet Fitness world. So I was watching that happen, and that introduced me to the franchise space. So my father and I actually decided to partner together. He had since retired from running his gyms, and we partnered together and started looking at this wellness space. It was actually introduced to us by a marketing friend, someone who had done marketing for Planet Fitness for years, who was at a what would you call it, a franchise convention down in Orlando, because that's where he goes and finds business. And he met the iCRYO guys and brought it back to my father and myself. I was like, I think you guys got to look at this. This is a really interesting space. And this was back in 2018. And we did. And we started doing some research. We looked at a couple different brands at the time. And we just liked what iCRYO was all about. We liked where they were in terms of their training. And I think that's something that we'll talk about in a little bit. We liked what they were doing in terms of the combination of modalities that they were putting together and the runway that they saw in this space, and the evolution of the modalities that'll be inside the building. So that's kind of how we got introduced to iCRYO. And then for me, it was just that perfect combination of, I have this healthcare, educational, clinical background. I love helping people. I understand how the body works. I understand how these modalities work. And then I wanted to run my own business, and it just was that perfect matchup of being able to do both of the things I was most passionate about.
Yeah, great story. And now you're essentially you're helping people manage and own their own wellness journey by maybe veering more towards a holistic approach and a natural approach, and helping the body do what it's meant to do on its own, using some of these modalities and some therapies and some of the different approaches at iCRYO, which is a little bit of a departure from sort of the big pharma model, right? And where you were involved before. And I'm, like you said, very similar in terms of not in a pharma clinical sense, but in an IT sense. That's kind of was my background as well, on the sort of Western medical, pharmacological, financial, electronic medical record, realm, all of those things. So great story. And what was it that, just from a high level, was it your franchise background that you decided where you wanted to make a switch? You wouldn't create something on your own, but you would jump into an already sort of proven model, branded model like an iCRYO. Can you talk about that for a bit?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it lowers the barrier to entry by being part of a franchise system. Now, you lose some control, right? As a business owner, we have to follow brand specific guidelines and do things the way that the brand has created. But there's two ways to look at that. You could look at that as a negative, and I lose a little bit of control in how I might want to do things. But at the same time, my barrier to entry was so low. I didn't have to go create all of my training documents. I didn't have to create my operations manual. I didn't have to go create the logo and pick the wall colors and all these things that just distract you from actually getting the business open. So I'm always happy to talk from a business perspective on what might make the most sense for you as a potential future business owner, as an entrepreneur. But for us, I understood the franchise space. I understood the benefits that come with that, the power and branding that comes with being part of a franchise, especially if you could get in early and be part of that growth. It opens up a lot of doors to grow faster than you probably ever would on your own, unless you have a lot of financial backing, could find, easy access to money to open very quickly. But franchising, I think, does open that door for a lot of people. And since my father had come from that model, I mean, he ran 34 gyms under the Planet Fitness name. I mean, to see that type of growth in a franchise model, I just don't think he would have done that. He'd probably agree that he wouldn't have done that if it was, Joe Pepe's gym. So it definitely allows for that, and it is a different avenue. So we saw that opportunity and wanted to be a part of it.
Okay, very cool. And so, great segue. Let's talk about iCRYO. What were some of the things that drew you to that model, that brand?
Mhm.
Just talk about that, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely. I think from, when we were looking in 2018, 2019, I think most of the brands that are out there now are still a little raw. The big ones were obviously us, and I won't even use the other ones by name. We'll stick with us. But most folks know who they are. And for us, it was the people involved. We liked the people we met that were some of the early franchisees, the corporate team members at the time, the founders of the company, Kyle and Bill well from coming to our conventions. I know that, Joe, and really seeing their training. That was a big, big part of it for me, because education in the health space is, I think it's lacking in general. And to see that we had some of the more advanced training for our systems was a real push for us to want to be a part of iCRYO. And then for me personally, it was being an early franchisee. I think we might have been only 4 or 5 in terms of franchisees involved, to know that I could also have an impact on what that training and education looks like going forward. That was also a key piece of that, because, coming from the space that I came from, having the education that I have, a master's degree in basically how the body works, regardless if it's sports medicine, health science, whatever, specific name you want to call it. I understand the human body. Most people don't. Unfortunately, most people don't. And, it's the one tool that we have for our entire lives. And I do believe everybody should understand it a little bit better than we do right now. And knowing that from an educational standpoint and how these modalities can help people, we were ahead of the game in terms of what I saw. Really got me to latch on to iCRYO and what they were about.
Yeah, excellent. And then, so now, when was that? Was that pre-COVID, or when was that?
That was pre-COVID. Yeah, that was 2018. I think we started our conversations. I think I signed my contract with them in 2019,
Great.
May of 2019 or June of 2019. And then we delayed our opening because of COVID. So we were involved pre-COVID, but yeah, that kind of messed up our ability to get our doors open in our first location for sure.
Gotcha. And when did you open the doors then? Did you say?
Uh, February 13th, 2021. We just had our third anniversary for our first
Excellent.
center.
Congratulations. And how many locations do you have?
So we have 2 now, one in Raleigh and one in Cary, North Carolina.
Okay, excellent. And so I guess so you're in iCRYO. It's been a few years now. You got a couple locations. Talk about the customer of iCRYO. Who comes to iCRYO? I know, we could put things in the wellness category, and some of my conversations revolve around, treating buckets or different demographics, not necessarily demographics, but we talk in terms of unwell people, well people, and high performers. And so maybe it's similar that you see coming into iCRYO, and maybe one, you see more than the other. But if you could talk about that mix a bit, that'd be great.
Yeah, it's an interesting mix because, and I've heard it on your podcast before, I've heard it from other people in the industry. Who comes to our door? Everyone comes to our door, but for different reasons. And we like to train our team in terms of, there's 4 pillars. People are going to come in for pain and inflammation. They're going to come in for sports and performance, beauty and aesthetics, or general wellness. So when we have people come through, we kind of look at what bucket do you fit in so that we can make the right recommendation of modalities. But really, we see everything from young athletes to folks who are just trying to stay active well into their later years in life. I'd say to be a little more specific, I think a lot of people find us for something acute, say immediate pain or back pain, chronic pain, soreness from exercise and fitness and sports performance. But the people who stay with us the longest are usually I'd say 45, 50 plus, who want to be active their entire lives, who don't want to slow down. They want to go for hikes in their 60s. They want to play with their grandkids. They want to travel, and they want to maintain their health for the long haul. They're looking at it more through an anti-aging, longevity, general wellness viewpoint, as opposed to treating something acute. So I would say we see everybody, but the ones who really dive in experience all of the modalities that we offer and all of the therapies that we offer and stay for longer periods of time are those folks who are really looking for a lifetime of wellness as opposed to solving a short-term problem.
Yeah, and hopefully that population is growing, and it seems to be.
Yeah.
As the whole wellness space, the whole wellness industry is just exploded in the past several years, and it just seems like it's accelerating faster and faster all the time. And so next thing I want to kind of address is, let's get into the different services available at iCRYO. And I'm always curious to know, some places open with highly specialized service, maybe one or two services, like maybe it's just cryo, or maybe it's just sports recovery, or maybe it's just aesthetics, and iCRYO, I think, has a wider variety of that. And I'd love to understand from your perspective, where's the sweet spot in terms of, should we specialize in something and offer one or two things and really focus there? Or should we try to offer everything to try to draw in as many different, preferences as we possibly can get a hold of? Where is the balance point in there, and where's that sweet spot, would you say?
It's hard. I wish I knew exactly where the sweet spot was, because then we'd have a really structured business model to just focus on. I think it's a tough balance, because everything that we do could benefit folks, and there's so many other modalities out there that we're not using at iCRYO. But I don't think you could be everything for everybody. There's just always that mentality of, well, let's just get the latest and greatest and put it in the center. And but you also have to learn, you have to train, you have to educate, you have to see if it even works from a business model standpoint. So there's kind of two perspectives: is what can I provide to my guests, to my patients, that can have a demonstrable effect on their lifestyle, versus what can I run my business on, because I want to obviously keep my business running so I can continue to do that for my community. And I think some people could spread themselves too thin. I think right now, to be honest, right now, what we offer at iCRYO, and there's probably one service I'm going to be adding soon, and we could dive into that too. I think right now we have that great balance. We're offering hot and cold therapies. We're offering compression therapies. We're offering a lot under the medical portion of our business, which is IV infusions, IM and vitamin shots. And then from an aesthetic side, we touch on the aesthetics with knee skin and body contouring. So I think there's a lot there for us to have that nice balance. I think if you add too much to that, you just start to spread yourself thin. You lose a little bit of that education. Your team can't be experts in everything. Guests can also get, I forget how to say it, but it's, when there's too many choices, and they just
fatigue.
can't.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah, you could get decision fatigue, and so do we, right? Because we're also the ones out there making recommendations and trying to solve problems for folks and create a plan for them to move forward with. What we have works, and that's the truth. What we have works. Do other things work? Sure, they do, but that doesn't mean you have to use it. What we have works really, really well right now. And there's no reason to tweak that.
Yeah. And I think it's important for people to understand that, especially with a company like an iCRYO, you guys have processes for vetting and doing your due diligence and checking the research and the science behind these services before you were to open them up. Whereas a lot of other people do a lot of trial and error when they're building a business from the ground up. And yes, to your point earlier, they have more control that way, but there's also more potential failure points and learning curves that they'd have to get through. And a lot of that takes time, it costs money, it's, and it takes energy, frankly. And so if you can tap into a system that, has that vetting process and has that research and due diligence process in place already, it can give you as a business owner more confidence, and it can certainly even give the consumer who's coming to your establishment more confidence, knowing that you've already gone through, some of those processes. Do you have any comments around that?
No, I think you're spot on. And I've seen it in, for lack of a better term, mom and pop shops, maybe not big brands, in my area and other areas where I've traveled to. And, you see they got this really cool, probably expensive machine in the corner, but nobody knows how to talk about it. They might feel that they wasted their money on it. Maybe they bought it, sold a couple packages over the first few months, and then it just collects dust in the corner, because they couldn't figure out from a business standpoint how it fits in, how to price it, how to package it, how to stack it with other services. So vetting all of that through a brand, through a franchise, really helps us out in terms of knowing that when something is launched, it's included in our operations manual. All the training materials are created. We have time to get our teams prepared for it. We know how it's going to be priced. We know how that's going to fit into our memberships and everything else. So again, you definitely get that power of organization when you're part of a franchise system. So yeah. I think you're spot on. I think that's really important. And even for your doctors in smaller communities who open up wellness centers, and for your folks who are doing what iCRYO and Restores and these other brands are doing, but at a smaller level with their local communities, they can still do that, but it takes a lot more time and a lot more money to figure it out. But I would encourage, for anyone on the business side listening to this, that you really need to vet that out and understand if there's a business model around the machine you're going to purchase, and know what your goals are. When is that machine going to be paid off? Because you just don't want to get stuck with something that is slowing you down. You want it to provide value to your guests, but you need it to provide value to the business. And that's really important, because you want the business to stick around.
Sure. And you guys at iCRYO, you guys have different pricing models. You talked about packaging the services and things like that. Can you talk about what's available to members and non-members?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, like most people in our industry, we try to be as accommodating as possible, but with so much in so many varying prices per modality, we try to package it as best we can. So we offer membership options. They're called our lifestyle passes, and that covers a number of services. I mean, it covers cryotherapy, infrared sauna, compression therapy, and PBM, red light therapy, or photobiomodulation. So all of those fall under our lifestyle passes, and we have 3 different levels based on how many credits per month you want, or that we recommend for you, actually. And then for our medical services and our aesthetic services, we create packages. So again, everything that we do is really based on a consultative conversation with our team members, with our medical staff, with our doctors and physicians, so that we could put together a plan, and then we build a package around you. So it may be, if you're dealing with an autoimmune disease or something like that, we might be looking at an intro into ozone UV/IV therapy for a few months, get you on a maintenance package with that, as well as stacking that with something like red light, infrared sauna, and cryo, so that you're relieving those symptoms on a day-to-day basis, but you're getting the long-term effects of the UV/IV ozone for the long haul, which is really going to help with those autoimmune symptoms you might be facing. But anyway, long story short is, we have membership options, we have package options, but it's really geared towards the guest. We want it to be as personalized as possible.
Yeah, and that's a great point, because I know, a lot of the facilities, even when you guys first started, when the Restores first started, when a lot of different facilities such as this first started, it was, and this is just a general statement, but it seems like it's moved from sort of come in and, as the consumer, come in and choose what you want to do, to now it's more evolving into come in and let us learn about you so that we can know what's going on with you. Maybe we've done an assessment and we're getting a little bit more involved with your journey and making recommendations to you along the way to hope for the best outcomes. And is that a fair statement? That it seems that the industry has changed and evolved in that way.
I think you're spot on, and I think it still needs to continue to change that way, to be honest. I think a lot of people don't know what they need, and it's not a knock on people. I just don't think our education system, there's a lot of things that happen as precursors that find people in this state of, I have these issues, but I don't know how to solve them, and then I go do a quick search online and it said go do cryotherapy. We find this all the time, where people come in and they say, I want to do cryotherapy. Cool, okay, why do you want to do cryotherapy? And I'm going to ask you some questions. I want you to open up. I want to learn a little bit more about you. And they might not realize that they should be doing cryotherapy 2 to 3 times a week if you're dealing with chronic pain that you've had for 10 years plus. They might think I'm going to be able to do it once and I'm going to feel great. I always use the analogy of, if you're trying to lose weight, are you going to try the salad today and see if you lose weight over the next 6 months? Or are you going to keep eating healthy on a long-term basis, right? We want to get you into the long-term habits that are going to help you for the duration, so you're not dealing with this pain ever again. But it takes education. We're the ones educating quite often, and then stacking those services, combining those services together to get them the relief, because they may have only researched cryotherapy and they didn't look into red light therapy. They didn't look into infrared sauna. They didn't look into some of the IV infusions that could help with pain management. They didn't look into all these additional modalities that can help them out.
Yeah, great point. And I think people just overall appreciate it more. They're more loyal when they know that you're involved and you're invested in their outcomes and their personal journey, rather than just letting them pick what they might want to do. So I think it's great that the industry is evolving that way. I think when people are taking more ownership in their health and wellness, to your point, it doesn't mean that they know how to take care of their own health and wellness, and they need to find a place that they can trust, where they trust the education and the expertise, that you guys are cultivating there and that you're able to offer. And so, having said that, you guys offer a lot of services, a lot of different ones. You've vetted them all, like we talked about. So what's Matt Pepe's favorite service at iCRYO? And that could change time to time. I understand that.
It does.
But what's your go-to right now? I'm curious.
It does. So I'm a big fan of, and big fan meaning I'm doing this right now. It's cryo, red light, and I do NAD therapy on a regular basis. Those are my big 3 that I stick with consistently. I get, I'm still very active in terms of how I exercise. I'm very much I'm into HIIT training and CrossFit and those types of things. So being able to do cryotherapy after a workout is huge for me to recover faster. I'm not getting younger, so the soreness sticks around a little bit longer than it used to. So cryo is huge for that, and so is the red light. And then NAD therapy, there are a lot of, I do it more preventatively, although I do feel the benefits in the short term. But for me, there's a lot of degenerative illnesses in my family history. So knock on wood, I'm not facing any of that hopefully anytime soon, but I want to stay ahead of that, right? So anything I could do to keep that cellular health, keep those mitochondria working efficiently. And NAD and red light actually work really, really well together. I'm not sure in terms of folks I've heard speak here, I haven't heard that combination come up, but it's one of my favorite combinations when you think of NAD's importance to the energy production cycle inside the mitochondria, and how red light is actually helping your body optimize oxygen in that same cycle. The two really go hand in hand for cellular health and energy production.
That's excellent. And I actually wanted to ask you about stacking the different services and modalities. And for those who aren't familiar with the term, I just refer to stacking as any time you can combine either simultaneously or even sequentially a couple of different modalities, 2 or 3 different things. You mentioned the red light, the NAD, and the cryo. Somebody else might like cryo and then do a sauna session, like a hot, cold, and then a hot type of thing. So yeah, and so I think there's 2 ways to look at stacking. You can look at it from just a pure time savings opportunity where you can get 2 things done at the same time, or you can look at it as an efficacy building and results improving, tactic, if you will, where you're doing 2 things at once or 3 things at once, not only to save time, but to also improve your results. And it sounds like, I don't know, I don't think you're able to do cryo, PBM, and NAD all at the same time. If you found a way, let me know. But so you're sequencing those, or you might just be doing them all
Hmm.
as a matter of course, as a matter of your regular routine, and sort of putting them all into
Hmm.
your routine at various times, asynchronously, if you will. Um, but
Exactly.
do you think do you think your customers, your members, have sort of latched on to the idea of stacking? Do they like that? Do they want to hear about that and do that?
Yeah, I absolutely think so. Some come in with their own research and what they think they want to do and or know they want to do in some cases, and we love that the folks who have put some time in because it allows us to build off that conversation a lot faster than someone who we're starting from scratch with, who doesn't have a lot of the knowledge of what services work well together. But absolutely, and it's a goal of ours for two reasons. To be honest, from a business standpoint, we want people using more services. They're going to feel better, and from a business standpoint, it makes sense for us to get guests experiencing that and trying and experiencing more services. But there's also kind of lost my train of thought, but the reality is um, combining services inside and out of our center is a huge part of your life. So like you could focus on it just on what we're doing inside of iCRYO, and you could focus on cryotherapy, red light, NAD, or something like that. But I'm also doing other things outside the center, right? It's when am I working out? I fast a couple times a week. There's a number of other things I'm incorporating into my health, and we want to learn that from our guests too. We want to understand their lifestyle because some of these people are doing a lot of things at home. They're taking multivitamins, or they might be trying other services, or they're doing massage. Well, if you're doing massage, when should you be doing cryo? Or when should you be doing sauna? Because we want to help flush out that lymphatic system after a massage. So understanding every aspect of their wellness life and their lifestyle in general really helps us combine those services and stack them appropriately for that guest. Because there's other things that are being stacked; they're just being stacked at home.
Yeah, great point. I mean, I think as I'm more and more into sort of the biohacking space and the wellness space, sometimes I think it gets quite complicated and it can be overwhelming for people. And so,
Hmm.
a lot of things people can do at home for free, and they could do them
Hmm.
in their own environment, whether it be going outside and grounding, perhaps barefooted on the ground, or
Hmm.
watching the sunrise, or just making sure
Hmm.
that their nutrition and hydration habits are in line and appropriate to what they want to accomplish in their exercise, to your point. So there
Hmm.
are a lot of things you can even do outside. Now, unfortunately, some of our lifestyles these days don't allow us to get as much fresh air and sunshine as
Hmm.
we might want to. And so some of those convenient and low cost and no cost options, which are always great and ideal, and
Hmm.
frankly, for anyone, you know, you kind of have to supplement and augment
Yeah.
those things that are more convenient with some more sort of plug and play modalities and
Yeah.
therapies. And it's nice to be able to come into a place that has a lot of things under one roof, and a lot of things that have been
Hmm.
well researched and well vetted, and the staff is well educated on. So it just creates that confidence in the consumer to help augment what they can't do sort of at home in their
Yeah.
everyday life, but certainly to complement those things that they do in their everyday life, and vice
Hmm.
versa as well. So
100%. It's interesting because I mean, we see this every winter. So it always comes up, and now our team is knows a little bit more to just bring it up to our guests. But in the wintertime, obviously, shorter days. If you're working a 9 to 5 job, you almost never see the sun. And a lot of times we get guests who will, they'll work their 9 to 5, they'll go to the gym, and then they come in and they'll get their services post gym, so it's later in the day. Well, in the winter, I deal with this myself. I get seasonal depressive disorder or seasonal affective disorder, whatever it's
mm,
called. So I'm almost always deficient every winter in vitamin D. So a lot of guests don't even realize that we offer vitamin D shots. You could come in and do them here. So it's just another thing that we could offer, and we could talk to our guests about. But it's about learning what they're dealing with, being able to say, "Hey, did you know that when you're in the sauna, if you're already doing the sauna, we have chromotherapy in there. If you put the blue light on, blue light actually helps your body
Cool.
generate its own vitamin D. But at the same time, you could do a supplemental shot, and we could do a vitamin D shot every, once a week, and it'll more than supplement what you're losing in this time of year. So again, some things might be seasonal. They might not be an all the time correction, but there are things that we could help with. And it all comes down to, from me, and the way I like to manage and the way I want our team to work with our guests is we should just always be learning. We're there to service them, but we're also there to learn about their lives so that we could always point them in the right direction.
Very cool. Very cool. Let's switch gears a little bit as far as services go into more of the business side and how you guys drive business, get the word out. I'm really interested to hear, with all of the options that are available to people. And I'm not kidding. I'm kind of in the middle of this industry like you are, from a different perspective. And the different businesses that I see opening up and propping up, even in the franchise world alone, not even counting the mom and pops, there are different options for people to take advantage of. Every day there's something new. And so how do you, and I understand that once they're inside of an iCRYO, inside of one of your locations, there's a lot that you guys do to build that loyalty and that confidence and that comfort and that culture and that environment that somebody wants to be a part of as a consumer. But how do you get them in there the first time? How are you guys getting the word out? Yeah. How are you bringing feet through the door? The first time, what's worked, and what are you guys seeing out there?
Man, I wish there was a magic formula. There just isn't right now. But our top three are it's Google search, and we try to be. It's something that's always evolving. What are people looking for? And you got to stay up to date. I think when you think about market trends, what are people searching? How are they searching? What are they looking for? So understanding where people are, and that changes. It's crazy. It changes from month to month, season to season, year to year, what people look for, but we seem to always be able to help, right? So really just staying up to date on how we are presenting ourselves from a digital search perspective, SEO perspective with our website. But that's by far the most when it comes to how people find their way to iCRYO. They're searching for how to fix my back problem, or I'm leaning away from the cryotherapy near me. Those people are looking for us, but folks who stumble on NAD ads, folks who stumble on ozone UVIV therapy ads, people who are looking for ways to detox and then see something about infrared sauna at iCRYO. That's what we're kind of always trying to master from a digital perspective. But like you said, once you get in and build that loyalty, our number 2 lead generator in terms of new guests is referrals.
I was going to ask you that next. Yeah.
Once you get someone through the door and they have a real life experience, that referral business becomes huge. Word of mouth is very large in this industry. I'd venture to guess, and I could completely be off, but I'd venture to guess less than 10% of the population, the entire population, has any idea what our modalities are. Like, I think we get stuck, you and I and folks in our industry, we get stuck in a microcosm where we all talk to each other, so we feel like everybody knows this, but they don't all know this.
Totally.
I mean, if it's a holiday and I'm talking to my family members, half of them don't know what I do for work. They don't understand it.
So 100%, 100%. I feel like we're in an echo chamber a lot of times, and we have to sort of remind ourselves of that, and don't assume what someone might know and what their level of knowledge is, because, we spend all of our time, you and I, we spend all of our time with people who are in this circle. And it is so true. So I really appreciate that point. So having said that, now you have people, coming in off of Google searches and those those ways, big percentage with referrals. And, so getting people in is one thing. When you think about any other challenges that keep you up at night, for lack of an overused, phrase, but just things that run around and rattle around in your head in terms of this industry and where kind of the sticking points are right now, what would you say?
I think as a whole for the industry, it's still pretty nascent, but it's not. And it's this double-edged sword. And I'll explain a little bit. When you think of our core services that get people through the door, cryotherapy, infrared sauna, let's break it down a step further. It's cold therapy and it's hot therapy. That's not new. Thousands and thousands of years of history of folks using cold and hot therapies to benefit their bodies, to build up resilience, to make yourself stronger, for vitality, for all of these things. It's not new from a therapy perspective. What's changed are the modalities that we used, but that we use now. But now, because of that, people are always looking for it. You can research so easily. Everything is available online. People want data that this particular modality is the best one out there for me to get X, Y, and Z. And sometimes I tell people to look past that. You're using hot and cold. It's not new. These things have existed forever. We just have this particular modality, this particular machine that's applying that cold to you. So sometimes I feel like folks get hung up on the research, and I know it's coming. Like, there's constantly new data available. There's constantly new studies coming out on all of the things that we do, including your products. But it's still in a very nascent phase. It's still a very new thing. So it's hard to explain and educate folks on that sometimes, which is why to really answer your question specifically, one of the biggest challenges is being able to convince someone that they need to experience this over a period of time. It's not a one and done, right? I love your product because it is one of the, and we don't have it in iCRYO, so I know you're working on that.
I know you don't.
But what's great about some services is you do get that immediate feedback. You get biofeedback. It doesn't hurt as much as it did 10 minutes ago, right? You get it with cryo. That's what is great about cryo, and that's why it's still our number one service that we offer in our center. It does work the first time. I know PMF is like that, but red light's not. Red light is something you're going to have to do it over a period of time. NAD is something you're going to have to do it over a period of time. Ozone, some people do get immediate great effects, but ozone UVIV, you're going to want to do it once a week for 5 weeks before you're really like, oh my God, okay, now I get it. Now I got that mental clarity. Now I got that energy boost. So our biggest challenge tends to be getting folks to really understand what it means to try. My team will laugh because I told them they're not allowed to use the word try in iCRYO anymore. You're going to have an experience, and that experience could be a month. But that's what we need you to get through before you tell me if this is working or not working for you, because you have to let it build upon itself.
Yeah.
And you have to let those cells heal. You have to let the body get stronger. You have to let that inflammation go down over multiple service days. So that's our biggest challenge.
Yeah, and it is true. I think people are so ingrained with, I do something now, I get the benefit of it now. Or in 5 minutes, and a lot of that, let's face it, in the medical world, a lot of that applies. You take a pill for a certain symptom, that symptom will likely go away shortly, depending on what that symptom is, and what that medication is. But with these modalities, these therapies, these services we're discussing, most of the time what the sort of mode of action is to strengthen or enable the body's own innate healing capabilities to take place. So we're energizing, supporting, enhancing that process, which is exactly what it is. It's a process, right? And so people have to be reminded. Now, saying that is one thing. Having a member, consumer, customer sort of understand that and take that to heart, it takes a little bit more education, I would think, on your part, on your staff's part, on my part, just because of human nature and that thing. So, is there a correlation? And I know this is a little bit more surface, but is there a correlation to the experience they have today, like something you just described? I did this, I feel better now already. Is there a correlation of that to long-term growth, long-term revenue, long-term adoption on the member side. What would you say to that?
I'd say for the folks who get the immediate result, there's almost 100% buy-in like that. Like and a big one is, acute pain, like I brought up earlier. It is a reason why most people find us. The majority of people find us is acute pain or just soreness from exercise or their lifestyle. And they come in, they do cryo, maybe stack it with a few other services, compression, red light, and they leave that day feeling better. That person's going to be with us for a while.
Yep.
It's a lot harder when someone comes in and reads that, my friend did IV therapy and said it helped him with his brain fog, and give me an IV today. And if their brain fog's not gone in the half hour, they're going to be like, "No, it was a waste of money." And that's that harder person to convince that you did something that was great for your body today, but that was once. But I also don't know what you did before you came here. If you had any sleep last night or whatever else might be going on. But give us a chance to learn about you. Give us a chance to stack some of these services over time and combine services when you're here so that we could get you the relief. Maybe we could tweak the formula that we're using in the IV. Maybe we could give you taurine, which is good can help with brain fog and help with anxiety and get you into a calmer state. There are these things that we can modify over time if I don't want to say if guests give us a chance. It's our job to educate them on what they should be doing, how long they should be doing it, and when they should experience benefits and how long that might take. So that's on us. So again, to your challenge question, that is a big piece of it. And I think one of the things that helps us combat that the most is stories. It's hard to talk only science to people who just want to feel better. They don't care about the science. They might in some way, but, and again, I'm like this. Tell me the results. Tell me what I will feel when I will feel it. Give me a good story, and I'm going to buy into that story. I tell people all the time, I hate salespeople who are salesy, but I love people who tell a good story because I'm going to buy into that. And if you had a great experience yourself as a team member of mine, or even if you get a new guest that is presenting with a lot of the same issues as a previous guest, tell them the story. Don't break any HIPAA violations, but tell them the story of who that guest was, what they did, and how they felt later, because that's going to be more powerful than you talking about at a molecular level what's happening inside the mitochondria.
So true. So true. My number one key to success whenever I do training on PEMF and on Pulse is, and this applies really to any service, it's universal, is you have to have your own story. Your staff, and the best way to do that is have your staff be using your services. And 100%. So, if you're not taking full advantage of the people that are sharing, your services with the outside community to drive revenue in your business, if they don't have their own personal story and all they're going off of is what they read on the brochure, what they read on the company's training website, and maybe what they've read on PubMed as far as the science, that is not going to, cut it. And it's just a lot more authentic than that. And somebody, to your point, somebody sharing how, yesterday they weren't able to do this, and I'm moving my arm, without discomfort. And now they can because they tried XYZ at an iCRYO. That person, if it's you saying that, you're coming back. And if you're telling your neighbor that because you heard that they had a similar problem, they're coming in to see you guys.
Exactly.
And so I can't stress that enough, that people overthink the advertising, the marketing, the science. There's a lot of things people spin and grind on in this business when it's just staring them in the face. They have, 5 or 6 people working for them that they could be developing into ambassadors. And not only being able to tell that story better, those 5 or 6 people, but those 5 or 6 people are going to be feeling and doing a lot better themselves. And that translates into the energy that comes across in a conversation too. So we're totally on the same page there. So just kind of veering off a little bit in terms of the challenges, what would you say is your biggest, now talking about we talked about the past and the present. How
Mm-hmm.
about the future? What would you say are some of your biggest concerns, or maybe your biggest concern about where you see the industry going, and maybe and then a bright spot too? So let's do the bad news and the good news here, or the challenge and the
Yeah.
opportunity, I should say.
Yeah, I might be, because I haven't put a lot of thought into this in terms of what some of these, bad challenges might be going forward. And I might be alone in stating this, and I'm not afraid to say it, is I think a lot of this wellness industry is going to get watered down. And what I mean by that is I think you're going to get a lot of businesses who are like, great, cryo's hot, or red light's hot, or whatever it is hot. I'm going to put it in my gym. I'm going to put it in my chiropractor office. I'm going to put it in my this. And then they aren't prepared to educate on it. They aren't prepared to really understand how it fits with other modalities. They really aren't prepared to even manage it from a business standpoint. And can it be revenue producing, so that it works for you and it becomes something you could offer long term. And I'm already seeing it happen. And I just hope it doesn't tarnish the industry, because it's not good if you walk into a great gym that you love everything about the gym, and then they got a cryo chamber sitting in the corner not being used. But it's not being used because they don't know how to manage it. They don't know how to train on it. They don't know how to get people to experience it. But now you got a lot of people walking into a gym, seeing a piece of machinery in the corner that looks like crap, and they're going to think it's not worth crap. Yeah, I'm sorry if I'm not sure if I'm supposed to say crap on here, but
We'll work around it somehow.
But I think that, yeah. But I do think that waters down, the services and level of service that businesses like iCRYO, and there are definitely others that want to provide this high level of service, and show guests, show patients how to combine these modalities to really help their lifestyle. So it's something I'm a little fearful of. Not that it would affect our business per se, because like you said, I think the referral side of it is so big in terms of getting new people in the door that we could always have that. But I could see it getting a bad name because of poor business management, not necessarily because the services aren't working.
Sure. Now, yeah, when I think that through, might there be an opportunity in there for some community collaboration between businesses, between an iCRYO and a chiropractic office, from your example, where, sort of everybody sees what their specialty is or what their specialties are, and rather than investing in a brand new service line at a chiropractor's office, might it be smart to collaborate with an iCRYO and, have some of their patients use your services, and vice versa? When you have a patient who needs chiropractic, you're referring them back to that community chiropractor. Are you in any relationships like that, or have you thought about that?
Yeah, it's a great question, because I think there's a lot of runway there. We're not in any formal situations like that, although we do often refer out to other folks, and other folks refer out to us all the time. But it's just a mutual respect. It's a reputation based referral, but nothing that's like set in stone, contractual, kickbacks, things like that. But at the end of the day, I think that's also fine. If you're out there as a business owner, whether you're inside iCRYO, outside of iCRYO, and you're building really good relationships with, other wellness providers in your industry, then you're going to naturally get that, because they're going to realize you are the experts in this. And I'm never going to be the expert in massage therapy, chiropractor, or anything else. So I'm always happy to refer out to things that I'm not going to perform inside my centers.
Yeah, and I totally agree. I don't think it needs to be formal or contracted. I think a handshake and just a community awareness around, who specializes at what, and where sort of the boundaries, the borders are, serves the patient or the member the best. And frankly, it probably serves the business owners the best, is to stay involved and focused in what they're great at, what they can excel at, and what they can build referrals on the consumer side from, telling their neighbors about, and then also, from the professional side, the B2B referrals as well.
Yep.
So yeah, I think some opportunity might be there. What do you think is sort of the biggest reason to stay in this business and to be, ecstatic and thrilled that you are exactly where you are right now, over the next 10, 15 years, if you would?
Yeah, I think all the signs are there that this is an industry that's going to do nothing but grow. Like I said earlier, my father was in the fitness industry. When he started, and when I was a little kid, I mean, 1%, less than 1% of the population had gym memberships. Now something like 24, 25% of the US population has a gym membership. Well, now that more people are exercising and pay attention to their health in that manner, they're also realizing that they need things like recovery so that they can continue to exercise and be active throughout their lifestyle. So a business like ours, following the footsteps of the gym world, I think is just going to naturally happen. I saw personally, coming from the sports medicine space and being an athletic trainer, seeing these modalities grow out of athletic training rooms and now be available to the general population. Because a lot of these things also have been in use for a while, but they've been in use for specialized populations, elite athletes, college athletes, professional athletes. They weren't available in a retail space. Well, now that it is, and now that more people are exercising, I will say, I don't think this is controversial in any way, but it's post-COVID. I think a lot more people are health conscious, proactively health conscious, more than they've ever been before. So I also think that has been a feeder into this business doing nothing but growing. If my estimate was right, that we're somewhere around 10% or less of the population knows what we do, and we could get up to 25% like the gym world did over the last 30 years, then we're in the right place.
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah. So excited to be here. Yep. And I agree on all those points. What one thing would you say has surprised you the most going through this whole process?
The amount of services out there is one. I'll say two things. One is that when I first got into it, I knew some of the low hanging fruit. Your whole body cryos, your saunas, your compression, your red light therapies. I didn't realize how big the medical side of the business would be. I remember when we didn't open our doors with medical services or IV infusions, and we added that about 6 or 7 months after we opened. And at the time I was like, man, if we do 3 IVs a day, that sounds good. I mean, we're doing 12, 15 a day, just like clockwork. And I was just like, where are these people coming? Like, even me, like, we're in a pretty populated area in the Triangle in North Carolina. And I was literally saying to myself with one of my nurses, I was like, where are these people coming from? I didn't think there'd be this many people who are looking for these services. And seeing that side of the business just grow exponentially over the last 2 years has been pretty amazing. And a lot of our efforts going forward will be on the medical side in terms of expanding our service menu, so to speak. But another thing that I think on a challenging side that was unexpected, although if I really thought about it, I should have known this, would be finding the right personnel, all right, to work in these facilities, finding people who are educated enough and passionate enough to want to work in this type of setting, because it's not your it's not your very low hourly type of job. We're going to teach you how the body works. We're going to teach you how these modalities work. We're going to teach you how to speak in an educated way, even if it's just as a backup to to letting people understand how they're going to feel when they do this. You still need to understand how this works, and that goes back to how I was educated. I was always taught that you want to be a practitioner, you don't want to be a technician. A technician just turns things on and off. A practitioner understands why you're turning it on and off or turning the dials up.
Yeah, and what benefit or value it has to the customer, the member, in your case too. Yep. And that just creates that confidence again and that loyalty. And so you and I have spoken in the past on this. One of my biggest concerns about this industry is that it is largely a retail business that you're running, and the pool of candidates, and to your point, make sure you're hiring the right people, it's going to be instrumental in your sustainability, your success long term, to have people who understand that this isn't a punch the clock, type of job. This is something where you're going to be looked at as an expert. And so that partially falls on you, recruiting and hiring and retaining the right people. And then I would think that to some degree, it falls onto your vendor partners as well to come in on the different services and therapies that you guys offer, to make sure that educational information and that support is available and is rock solid.
Yeah,
So yeah, so we
absolutely.
both think about that a lot. In sort of wrapping this up, a couple of other quick things. Number one,
Hmm.
you mentioned earlier something new. Did we touch on that yet? Something new that you guys are going to be offering?
So yeah, so I'm very interested in hyperbaric chambers. It is an approved service now with iCRYO at the corporate level. We've started to roll it out into some centers across the country. I have not I've not signed my contract yet. I'm kind of waiting and seeing. And again, this kind of goes back to the business aspect. And I don't like to be always slow, but it is a new product. The training material is new. I want to see how the centers who are rolling it out are doing with it. I want to see how the sales look over the first few months with these units in the centers, and then determine what I need to do. Because, like you said, as a business owner, or as we talked about, being a business owner in a franchise, you do get a lot of stuff, right? So I'm going to have all the marketing materials from day one when I choose to move forward with it. I'm going to get the training materials from day one. But how do I want my team to talk about it, right? That's going to be a key part of it, because I'm going to have work on my shoulders too
Hmm.
when I choose to move forward with it. But hyperbaric chambers are starting to roll out into iCRYOs. I love the service personally. Uh, I think a lot of our guests would benefit from it.
Hmm.
It's come up in casual conversations, and I know I already have a number of our guests who are asking about it. They also see it on the corporate website already, so
Mm.
they're sort of I know I'm
Anticipation.
going to get pushed into it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. There's that anticipation, but I know you're familiar with them.
Yeah.
But that's probably next on our list is rolling out hyperbarics.
That's fantastic. And so, here's a question for you, and we'll wrap up. What is the one piece of advice for anyone either getting into a franchise in health and wellness, maybe in iCryo, maybe something else in health and wellness, or even starting up a mom and pop? What would you say your biggest piece of advice to that person would be?
I think team from day one is going to be hugely important, and exceptional training. Like you can't cut corners on training in this industry, because it's very expensive to manage. And I think that's something too where people could have passion projects and want to move forward with it. And I've seen it. I've seen multiple businesses in Raleigh close down that do similar work to us, and it's a beast in a lot of ways. And this, from a business standpoint, there's a lot of training involved. There's a lot of education involved, and the equipment is very expensive. So if you're not prepared to take on the burden of the expense and have your team ready to be able to produce inside the centers, it could be a lot to manage. And I didn't learn till I was in it. I kind of knew from a financial standpoint what it would take to get into this business, but I honestly I didn't realize till I was in it what it really takes to be successful in this industry. And part of it is because it's nascent. It's still pretty new, and you're not just you open a new gym and people are flooding through your doors, right? You open an iCryo and people are like, "What's that? What do you guys do?"
Sure.
so so it's definitely something you have to be prepared for. Doesn't mean it can't work. It does work. There's a lot of brands out there now, and it's just growing nonstop. But some people have tried to do it on their own. I've seen them come and go pretty quickly.
Yep. Yep. Okay. Great advice. Okay. And so if people are watching this and they're in the Raleigh area and they want to come in
Mhm.
and try iCryo in Raleigh, what's the
Yeah.
fastest and easiest and best way to do that for the first time?
Come check out our website. iCRYO.com is one of the easiest ways. You could search by the closest location, whether that's Raleigh or Cary. It will show up for you. You could book directly through there. You could find us on the socials at iCRYO_triangle. We run both of our centers under the same social media handle. So that's probably the easiest way. And if you do feel so inclined and want to reach out to me directly, I open that door for you. You can reach out to me at matt.pepe@iCRYO.com.
All right. Excellent, Matt. It was great having you on. I'm glad we could put this together finally. And I just really appreciate you being on Resilient Business, and I hope you have a great week.
Pleasure to be here, and same to you, Joe. Take care. Hopefully we'll be using that PEMF soon.
Thanks, Matt.
Take
Bye
care.
bye.